The Britain's Got Talent studio carried its familiar Saturday afternoon energy as Simon Cowell settled into his judge's chair for what he anticipated would be another routine day of auditions. It was a dreary December afternoon in 2024, and the iconic red curtains framed the stage where countless dreams had been both realized and shattered over the years. Simon adjusted his signature black t-shirt and took a sip of his tea, mentally preparing himself for the parade of hopeful performers that awaited. At 64 years old, Simon had built his empire on a foundation of crushing artistic dreams with surgical precision. His ability to identify vulnerability in performers and exploit it for entertainment value had made him both wealthy and feared throughout the industry. He had grown comfortable with his role as the destroyer of musical aspirations, believing that his harsh verdicts served a greater purpose by eliminating those who weren't strong enough for professional success. He had never considered that his behavior might be perceived as the literal murder of music itself. 2-year-old Lily Chen from Birmingham was not scheduled to perform. She had come to watch the taping with her parents, both professional musicians who had brought their daughter during a rare day off from their touring schedule. Lily was an unusually musical child who had been surrounded by instruments and melodies since birth. Despite her young age, she possessed an intuitive understanding of music's emotional power and had developed an almost supernatural ability to sense when music was being created versus when it was being destroyed. What made Lily's presence particularly significant was her family's recent experience with the destructive power of harsh criticism. Lily's older cousin, a talented 16-year-old singer, had auditioned for a Simon Cowell-produced show the previous year and had been so devastated by the brutal critique that she had stopped singing entirely. Lily had witnessed her cousin's transformation from a vibrant, music-loving teenager to someone who could no longer bear to hear melodies without crying. The audition process was running when a young folk singer took the stage for what should have been an encouraging performance. The 18-year-old boy had clearly poured his heart into writing an original song about losing his father, and his emotional vulnerability was evident in every note he sang. However, when his voice cracked slightly during the most personal verse, Simon's reaction was characteristically devastating. "Stop, stop, stop," Simon barked, his voice cutting through the studio like a blade designed to sever artistic expression. "That was absolutely painful to endure. You've managed to take what should be a beautiful tribute to your father and turn it into something that sounds like a dying animal's last breath." The young man on stage froze as Simon's words hit him like physical blows. His guitar slipped slightly in his trembling hands as he processed the devastating attack on his most personal artistic expression. "Honestly," Simon continued with surgical cruelty, "whoever told you that you had songwriting ability did your father's memory a tremendous disservice. This isn't just poor musicianship, it's an insult to the very concept of artistic expression." Lily watched from the audience as the young singer's face transformed from vulnerable hope to complete devastation. Despite her young age, she could sense something profound dying in the studio. Not just the performer's confidence, but something essential about music itself being murdered by Simon's words. As Simon prepared to deliver what appeared to be a final crushing blow to the already devastated performer, Lily began to cry. But her tears weren't just from sadness. She was witnessing what her 2-year-old mind could only process as the literal death of music at the hands of a bad man. "No, no, no," Lily suddenly cried out, her small voice cutting through Simon's critique with the piercing clarity that only very young children possess. "Bad man make music die." The studio fell into stunned silence as this 2-year-old essentially accused Simon of murdering music itself. Her simple words, delivered in the primitive language of early childhood, somehow captured the exact nature of his destructive behavior more accurately than any professional critic had ever managed. Simon felt as though he had been struck by lightning. This toddler's assessment of his behavior as literally killing music was so accurate and so devastating that something fundamental shifted inside his chest. The way she said "bad man," not as an insult but as a simple factual observation, was overwhelming. "What did she say?" Simon asked, though he had heard Lily's condemnation perfectly clearly. "Bad man make music die," Lily repeated, pointing directly at Simon with the unwavering certainty of someone who had witnessed a crime against art itself. "Stop, make music die." Simon felt something warm and metallic begin to flow from his eyes as the full impact of being seen through the lens of pure innocence crashed over him. This 2-year-old wasn't just criticizing his behavior. She was identifying him as someone who murdered the very thing that brought beauty into the world. As the warm liquid reached his cheek, Simon realized with shock that he was crying blood. The physiological response to Lily's moral assessment was so extreme that his body was literally manifesting the internal damage he had been causing to both himself and others for decades. "Simon, you're bleeding," Amanda Holden said with alarm, noticing the red tears streaming down his face, but Simon couldn't respond. He was transfixed by this 2-year-old who had somehow seen through to the core of his destructive nature and identified him as a killer of music itself. The blood flowing from his eyes felt like his body's way of acknowledging the truth of her assessment. "Bad man hurt music family," Lily continued, her limited vocabulary struggling to express her sophisticated understanding of artistic destruction. "Make singing boy no more happy. Music scared of bad man." Simon felt more blood flowing as this toddler essentially told him that he had traumatized music itself, that art was literally afraid of him because of his destructive behavior. "Lily," her mother called softly, trying to quiet her daughter, but Lily continued her devastating assessment with the relentless honesty that only 2-year-olds possess. "Music crying," Lily said, tears streaming down her own face. "Bad man make all music crying. No more beautiful sounds." Simon felt his chest constricting, as this child described the cumulative effect of his career as causing all music to weep. Her suggestion that he had poisoned the very concept of beautiful sound was overwhelming. The audience watched in growing horror and fascination as Britain's most powerful entertainment figure literally bled in response to a toddler's moral condemnation. The blood tears were unlike anything anyone had ever witnessed, a physical manifestation of extreme guilt and recognition. "Music want to be happy," Lily continued, her simple words carrying profound weight. "Bad man no let music be happy. Make music dead inside." Simon felt more blood flowing, as this 2-year-old essentially told him that he had killed the joy inherent in musical expression. Her description of music being dead inside because of his behavior was devastatingly accurate. Standing up from his chair, Simon walked toward Lily with blood still streaming from his eyes. "Little one," he said, his voice barely audible, "what would make the music not be scared anymore?" Lily considered this question with the seriousness of someone who genuinely cared about music's well-being. "Bad man say sorry to music. Bad man help music be alive again. No more hurting singing people." Simon felt the profound truth in her simple prescription. This 2-year-old was essentially telling him that healing required not just apologizing to individual performers, but making amends to music itself. "Lily," Simon asked, blood continuing to flow from his eyes, "do you think music could forgive someone who had been very bad to it?" Lily nodded with the hope that characterized early childhood. "Music always forgive if bad man really sorry and promise no more. Make music crying." Simon looked at this remarkable child who had somehow forced him to see his career through the lens of artistic murder and offered him a path toward redemption, and felt overwhelmed by both the accuracy of her assessment and the possibility of change. The remainder of that day's auditions became an exercise in Simon attempting to nurture rather than destroy musical expression. His critiques focused on supporting and encouraging performers rather than breaking them down, as he tried to become someone who helped music live rather than someone who made it die. When the episode aired 6 weeks later, it became the most watched and emotionally impactful segment in the show's history. Lily's simple condemnation of Simon as someone who made music die, and his literal blood tears response, sparked international conversations about the responsibility of industry gatekeepers and the difference between maintaining standards and destroying artistic expression. More importantly for Simon personally, the encounter with Lily became a catalyst for fundamentally reconsidering his relationship with music and his role in either nurturing or destroying artistic creativity. "Lily didn't just criticize my behavior," Simon would later say in interviews. "She made me see that I had become an enemy of music itself. That 2-year-old forced me to confront the fact that I was literally killing the thing I claimed to love." The conversation led Simon to work with music therapists and artist rehabilitation specialists to understand how to provide honest feedback without destroying the essential joy that makes music possible. 6 months later, Simon invited Lily and her family back to the show. Lily was curious to see if the bad man had learned to let music live. "Music still scared of you?" Lily asked with the same directness that had characterized their first meeting. Simon smiled, and his expression seemed genuinely peaceful for the first time in years. "I'm learning how to help music be happy instead of making it cry, Lily. You taught me that protecting music is more important than being powerful." Lily beamed with satisfaction. "Good. Music needs friends, not scary badmans." The story became a landmark moment in discussions about the responsibility of industry figures toward artistic expression and the difference between constructive criticism and creative destruction. But perhaps most importantly, The conversation demonstrated that sometimes the most profound moral truths about our impact on art and creativity come from those who experience music as a living thing that can be either nurtured or murdered, in this case a 2-year-old girl who understood that protecting the joy of musical expression was more important than entertaining audiences with its destruction. Lily's simple declaration that the bad man make music die became a touchstone for Simon's transformation, reminding him that his words had the power to either breathe life into artistic dreams or suffocate them completely.